tall stone near the road, opposite marker E. It leans towards the circle, almost pointing at it. The heel stone's a sarsen that hasn't been shaped by hammering with mauls, which is why it's an irregular shape. It marks the end of the avenue, the procession route used in the long-ago ceremonies that may have taken place here. You can't see the avenue very well now, but if you look at the base of the heel stone, you'll see a slight ridge in the ground on either side. Those are the borders of the avenue. The avenue continued across the road and over the field beyond. Then it turned right and went up the hill to your right, over the hill between the trees and down to the banks of the River Avon, near Amesbury.
But imagine how even more impressive the stones would have been if you were taking part in a procession approaching Stonehenge by the avenue. The way the sarsens were shaped gives an optical illusion of greater height, and the circle would have towered above you as you climbed up the hill. Perhaps it was, after all, simply a symbol of power. Maybe that was the real power and significance of Stonehenge. The power it had over the daily lives of the people, and as a symbol of existing authority, which lasted for well over 1,000 years.
But if it was simply a symbol of power, why then does it also act as a calendar? You can use the position of the sun on the stones to work out what month you're in. Midsummer, the summer solstice, is on the 24th of June. In that month, the light of the sun falls through that central archway opposite you. But in July, it falls through the next archway to the left. In August, it falls through the next archway after that, and so on, as the days grow shorter, until the winter solstice in December, when the birth of a new year was celebrated, and the light falls through the archway near the station stone we've just passed. In January, it starts coming back round this way until June, when it falls again through the center arch.
If you turn round now and face the heel stone, over to your right in the field there's a small round mound. That's a barrow, an ancient grave. Other barrows can also be seen from here in the distance, and this area has perhaps the densest concentration of burials of this type in about a 3-kilometer or 2-mile radius. They're arranged in groups, in a linear pattern on the crest of ridges. The generations of people who used Stonehenge gradually changed the way they buried their dead. They went from using communal burial places, sometimes called long barrows, to burying their dead singly. The body was placed in a pit, accompanied by grave goods, favorite items such as a decorated pottery vessel and stone or flint tools. Sometimes, especially if they were rich or celebrated, a bronze dagger or bronze trinkets would also be put in, and very rarely, gold jewelry. Occasionally, even a dog or horse was buried with them. Then, the earth would be piled on top, making these round mounds. Later, other bodies or the ashes from cremations would be buried in these mounds.
One of the earliest legends, dating from the 12th century, involves the wizard Merlin. After vanquishing the Saxons, the British king, Aurelius Ambrosius, decided to erect a memorial to the 460 British nobles who were treacherously massacred by the Saxons at Amesbury Abbey. He called in the wizard Merlin, who said, "Send for the giants round." This was a ring of stones, said to have been transported to Ireland from Africa by the giants. The king's brother, Uther Pendragon, set forth for Ireland with 15,000 men. They reached Mount Kilaris, where the giants round stood, but try as they might, they couldn't dismantle the stones. Merlin grew impatient and used his magical powers to take down the stones himself and bring them here. then erected them again in exactly the same way as they'd stood in Ireland. Kings Aurelius and Uther Pendragon are both said to have been buried here at Stonehenge, and Uther Pendragon's son was, of course, the legendary King Arthur, famous for his Knights of the Round Table and a quest for the Holy Grail.
According to another myth, it was the devil who put the stones here. He was employed by Merlin to take the stones from an old woman's back garden, again in Ireland. Dressed as a gentleman, the devil offered the old woman as much money as she could count while he gathered up the stones. She foresaw the task would take an immense amount of time, and that she would be as rich as a princess. But the devil tricked her, for as soon as she started counting the money, he had bundled up the stones and vanished. It's said that as he flew here with the stones, he dropped one or two, and those can still be found in the surrounding countryside.
Perhaps with this long history of recurring stories of the stones being flown or magicked here, the theory that they were brought by aliens from another planet is not too far-fetched after all. The stones were also believed to have healing powers, and it was said that casting scrapings of the stones down a well would cleanse the water of all the venomous creatures, especially the toads. Now, when you reach marker number 5, which is on the left, press number 5 on your handset, then the play button. Given to the custody of the nation by Sir Cecil Chubb in 1918, designated by UNESCO as a World Heritage Site in 1986, Stonehenge is without doubt one of the finest and most mysterious of prehistoric monuments. Turn slowly in a complete circle and take in all you can see. Stonehenge isn't special just because of the stones. It's also special for the plants that grow here. Even those yellow and grey patches on the stones are unusual. They're not stains, but tiny, slow-growing plants called lichens. At the last count, we found more than 90 different kinds. Now take a last look at Stonehenge. Even if we take away all the stones and all the stories, there's still something very special about this place. Something secret and hidden. The great Wessex novelist Thomas Hardy felt this and used Stonehenge as the setting for his heroine, Tess of the D'Urbervilles, Last Night of Freedom. As dawn approached,
the band of silver paleness along the east horizon made even the distant parts of the great plain appear dark and near, and the whole enormous landscape bore that impression of reserve, taciturnity, and hesitation which is usual just before day. The eastward pillars and their architraves stood up blackly against the light, and the great flame-shaped sunstone beyond them, and the stone of sacrifice midway. Presently, the night wind died out, and the quivering little pools in the cup-like hollows of the stones lay still.
Thank you for joining us on this audio guide tour of Stonehenge. Our custodians are happy to answer any questions, so please do ask. When you're ready, walk back through the tunnel and place your handset in one of the stands provided. Please remember to do this, as the handset contains an alarm that activates as you pass through the turnstile, and it makes a horrible noise.
Once you've returned your handset, why not wander around the shop or take a little refreshment before you go? In the shop, you can buy souvenir guidebooks. They're illustrated and tell you more about Stonehenge. And why not take this opportunity to join English Heritage? If you join now, your entrance fee to this site will be refunded. There's a special membership rate for families and senior citizens, and you'll be able to visit all the other English Heritage sites free.
But again, please return your handset first. As you leave and walk towards the car park, you'll see two large standing stones, though not as large as those you've just visited. One is blue stone and the other a sarsen. Touch them and feel the difference. Whatever the weather, the blue stone is always warmer. Why this is will always remain a mystery. Goodbye, safe journey, and do come back sometime to walk the wider landscape.
Goodbye.